Hey there, does it ever happen to you? One moment I got a little carried away with CGlue, and the next moment 3 weeks have passed. Yeah, I thought so. Well, I'm very proud of the end result. What CGlue is, it's an ABI-safe code generator. What does any of that mean? Well, when you write code, you use APIs or application programming interfaces. But when the compiler takes your code and turns it into binary data, it uses something called ABIs or application binary interfaces. And it's all fine when you're working on one library, you don't have to worry about it. But when you work on dynamically loaded libraries, it becomes a very, very important thing to have a stable ABI. Imagine, for instance, you're working on a smart home system and you want to work with multiple vendors, and there is one garage door vendor which got on board with you, and you ask them, okay, write me a library which can open the garage door, close the garage door, and query the status, whether it's open or closed. And they do it, and it's perfect. It does exactly what you want it to do, and there's nothing else to add. They ship you a binary and you use it. But your smart home system, it's dynamic, it's evolving, it's changing. And one key thing is that you, throughout the time, you will probably update the compiler. Meanwhile, the library which you got was completely binary. They didn't give you the source code. It's a very common thing in industry. And if you don't have stable ABI, what could happen is across the different compiler versions, certain inconsistencies could come up throughout the time. Think of it like you've got British English and American English. They are similar, you can usually understand them, but they have some differences. And now, take for instance American English and medieval English, and nobody can talk with each other because these languages are so much different. And this is exactly what could happen with code if there is no stable ABI. And Rust doesn't advertise stable ABI. Well, they have been pretty stable, but it could change at any point, and your vendor's library could become incompatible with your code. Now, it's like no biggie in Rust because usually you statically link code, and that's really cool. But let's say you want to make a plugin system. How do you do that? Well, you can't just statically link every plugin in. And this is the problem we encountered with memflow. We wanted to make a very, very rich plugin system, and there just wasn't anything easy to use. We could either rely on unstable ABI or write something stable, and we handwritten the code for stability using type checking, and it's all awesome. But the thing is, it's very hard to write that code, so why not make a code generator exactly for that? And this is exactly what CGlue is. Like, let's just have a look at an example. Right here we've got 3 crates as an example, and there is a API for plugins, then there is a plugin library, and then there is a user of the plugin API. The API crate describes the public API. The user binary uses that API, but it indirectly uses the plugin library, which it has no clue about. But because it's stable, they can coexist and work with each other, and you can swap the libraries in and out. And how do you do that? Well, it's just very simple. You've got few annotations right here. You've got a trait for plugin inner. It's just like the plugin of the described by the API. And what you do is you just mark it with CGlue trait, and that's it. And you also need to specify what happens with associated types. Right here, the borrowed type specifies that it includes main feature trait, just a single trait. And the group is a collection of traits. So a group will implement main feature, but it doesn't have to stop at that. When we were working on memflow, we thought of optional features. And optional features, optionality is not something you can do with Rust by default, but with CGlue, you can. Let's just go to features group. So main feature is just a print self function, which is annotated with CGlue trait. And then you've got other optional features we might want to add, like key value store, where you can write values to a key value store, some key value store, doesn't matter which, and get values. And then key value dumper, where you dump all the values from the store. And the group here, it specifies that an object that can be grouped into this collection, it must implement the main feature, but it could also optionally implement all these features. For instance, key value store, key value dumper, debug, the printf debug formatting, and clone. You could optionally clone the object. But the thing is, the trait defines just main feature, and these are optional. Now, what you do then in the library which implements a plugin, you just implement the trait as usual. Like, it's simple Rust code. It's plain Rust. And then what you do is you invoke this CGlue implement group macro, which you mark implement for KV store, which is write this object, a group which implicitly implements main feature. You don't have to specify it, but then you list optional features. So right here, there are two arguments. The second argument is optional. So the first argument is the entire braces. It contains a list of optional traits an owned object implements. So owned object is like a pure KV store type. It implements key value store, it implements key value dumper, it implements debug, and it implements clone. And then there is this forward thing, which is essentially a forward type right here. Forward mutable reference to KV store. And forward is essentially, it forwards the trait implementation to the type inside the forward type. So the forward type allows you to use references to the objects that implement the traits, instead of having to use those actual objects, which allows you to borrow data. Like right here, borrow features, it just gets the store and it forwards it. And it creates a forward object, and it works like magic. And all you have to do is specify that it's a CGlue forward. And the forward type implements key value store and key value debug. It doesn't implement clone, it doesn't implement key value dumper. And what you do then is you just create this extern C function, one extern C function, which has a create plugin. You pass an arc, which allows you to reference count the library right here, libloading library. It allows you to reference count it so that your plugin library doesn't get unloaded prematurely. It's really awesome, I'd say. But the thing is that in the end, what you do is go ahead to the user, which reads the library name, it then loads a plugin, and then it uses it. As simple as that. It uses it opaquely, like it creates an opaque object it doesn't need to know the type of, but then it uses it. It allows you to call this borrow features, which is on the plugin inner, and then it borrows the features, and then it calls the main feature, which is the print function. But then you can go ahead and do, optional features, like right here. We want to use key value store. Let's check that. We check if this here checks if the trait is implemented on the object at runtime, and then it gives you either some or none. And then you can just use the KV store. And the KV store function, it doesn't need to know the type. It just says, give me an implementation of key value store. That's all. And the same thing with KV dump right here. We cast it using checking, and then we pass KV dump, and this is it. This is how it all works. And as you can see, it's very much seamless. And I will just show you how to. You just run it, and works perfectly. You enter anything, enter a number, you can see it does that. it prints the self. You can also, well, let's see, store something useful like apples, or maybe maybe something like overflow the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, do that. Like, I want it overflown. Yeah. Please do that. I'll appreciate it very much. And this is it. This is CGlue. You're free to use it right here. It's got plenty of documentation. I went through and documented it as much as possible, as you can see. You can also use it with cbindgen. There are cleanup steps. I might write auto cleanupper, but it works. It's functional. It's C code generator, and C code has a stable ABI. Fun fact, across 2 millennia. It's really awesome. So go ahead, try out CGlue if you think your project would benefit, and there should be a few edge cases here and there, but please report them. And yeah, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, my name was Heap, yours was undefined. See ya.